What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining me on D's Analysis. We're going to be checking out Bitcoin and MSTR today. So as you can see, we all know that we have deviated from this long-term upward sloping trend line, and we're starting to establish a trend to the downside. The week candles have been looking a little odd, as you can see. We've bounced up, ended up gapping down. This other week closed at 343, and then this week closed at 335 with a indecision kind of a candle, somewhere stuck right here in the middle, not really bullish or bearish. And then after not getting included into the S&P 500, we pushed down to around 325 in after hours. We'll see if that bearish momentum continues into next week, or if we can see some kind of rebound. We are at a key level of support. If we lose that, like I said prior, I could see us coming down to this next level here around potentially 258 if we catch enough momentum. But like I said, we're still boxed in this price area, so we're still looking for a move above, a retest to continue higher, and then the opposite end is move down to retest to continue on down, because that's pretty much what we look at when price is boxed up like this. You're looking for a breakout and retest in either direction, because we don't know which direction it's going to go in. But once we get a specific move and the market kind of shows us where it could potentially be going, then we can kind of map out where that next short-term move could be. But we don't know where it goes from this point on. But if we do get a break and retest and a hold, we know that the odds are increasing to the upside, and then vice versa to the downside. So if we do make it down to this level, that's going to be a major support level. That's going to be the strongest level that MSTR probably has besides this level over here. And if we lose that, then we could fall very far down. Hopefully not. If that were to happen, I would imagine that we're seeing some kind of a potential crypto bear market, and potentially that would be the end of the cycle. And honestly, that would kind of line up with what I have over here. So I mapped out 2021, this double top that we have here, your higher low structure like that. And if we were to kind of take it like that and have that same idea, after it deviates from this move that it had, and you haven't mapped out, this is the exact same move, right? We mapped it out all the way to the bottom. So let me show you again. That's mapped out to, I'm sorry, not to the bottom, but to this candle here. We can do it all the way to the bottom as well, but we just did it to this candle here. And if we overlay that, it does look kind of similar. If you stretch it or scrunch it down a little bit, it looks practically the same. The moves have been almost identical. You can see a higher high being formed, and then it fell off the table here. And we can see this move was a little bit further down than what the printed candles did. But overall, it's practically the same idea. You kind of see that in there. So of course they're not going to be exact, but it definitely does look practically the same. If you put it down to the bottom, you can kind of see this push up higher off of this candle here. You can see how they look pretty similar, and we'll see if, hopefully we're not in this piece, but it does kind of look similar. Hopefully we don't get that move over here, because then we'd be looking at something like that. But this is just for the first part, and that would take us down to that 245 region roughly when you overlay it. But you can see that would obviously be bad news for MSTR. And after this candle right here, we did see a gap down, and then that was kind of the bottom, and then we kind of sideways chopped, and then that was an accumulation period to continue up higher. And that was throughout most of 2022 and the beginning of 2023, and then we started to rally up, and that's where we got this channel here. So we'll see if this is just that same thing, or ideally what we want to see on MSTR would be some kind of deviation back to the upside where we can have a clean move back into the channel, retest, and start to continue up higher. That would be the most bullish scenario. But if Bitcoin starts to increase in value and MSTR stays where it's at, then we might be looking at that potential scenario where we start to dwindle down. We'll see. Like I said, it's all going to be depending on if Bitcoin starts to rally and MSTR continues to deviate. That's going to be the biggest determining factor. On to the inclusion. The committee just flat out said no. Not 100% surprised, honestly. I know they met the requirements, but based off of what the company is, I know that SP 500, they're very strict with who they let into that 500, top 500. I'm not surprised that they were a little tight on MSTR based off of how MSTR is as a company. They're a software company, and then their sole purpose is to accumulate Bitcoin. So it just probably doesn't sit well with the committee, and they just denied it, even though the requirements were met. And it happened to other companies as well that probably should have been in there too. So MSTR isn't the only one. If we look at global liquidity, Bitcoin should be continuing some kind of leg up higher. I'm not sure where we're at in the cycle. I don't know if we're here or over here, but either way, we are starting to see another climb. So if we can continue to see a push in that direction, that's what we would want to see, and that would be a nice extended move for Bitcoin. Hopefully MSTR can follow up on that. And if we start to see fresh highs on global liquidity, then we should potentially see another move here on Bitcoin. Right now it is starting to look a little bearish, but we're still holding our structure right now. We definitely want to hold 107.1 on the weekly, and ideally would be at least above 109, and the best case scenario would be closing at 113. We still have 22 hours left, so we have one day really to see where this thing closes at, and that'll kind of help guide us in the next direction. Right now we're just getting rejection off of this minor level here that's been established from July 28th that week. We're getting rejected off of here. We closed underneath it, came back for a retest, and pushed down a little bit lower. Of course, if we close underneath the structure, which I hope we don't, then we would be more than likely retesting and continuing that trend, just how we did over here. Close underneath the structure, retest, continue on down. If we get a close here, I would expect similar results, unless we get some kind of green engulfing candle to reclaim a move similar to here, back up. But if we do start to push up higher, especially in terms of the weekly, you can see that we do have clean candles to the left. So if we close back up here, we could definitely get a move back up here relatively quickly. Like I said, from this point on, there's really clean candles all the way up to 119, but we do have this key structure in the middle that could slow price down a little bit before continuing this move up higher if we catch the bullish momentum to the upside. In terms of the RSI, if we're just looking based off the RSI, we're nowhere near the top yet, as the other times we have hit 95, then 90, and if we continue on this trend, we should be landing somewhere around 83 to around 85 for this top if we catch the momentum to the upside. We do have another downward sloping trend line here that needs to be broken. We're going to need to see some kind of move back into overbought territory above 70, close above that 76 region for a retest, and then maybe we can get that final push, and that's where Bitcoin potentially finds its top, and that would be the cycle top for 2025, and then rinse and repeat as time goes on again. So it seems like we tend to hold our moves above the yellow moving average. As you can see, we push up higher, and then as we fall underneath it for a sustainable close, that's usually the end of the cycle. So you can see we deviated temporarily, but it was short-lived. Pushed up as we fell back underneath after a major move. That was kind of the end of the cycle. We came back for a retest and failed. I still think we're kind of somewhere in this phase here. Maybe we get a nice green shaded area, and then when we come back to this yellow moving average, which would be a little bit higher, once we lose it, that would more than likely be the end of the cycle. That's if the scenario plays out and we actually end up pushing to that 85 region and get that green shaded area. I would imagine we could see it, but we need altcoin season to kick up. We need the Federal Reserve to start increasing their balance sheet, which they haven't yet. We are about to get a rate cut in September and a couple more throughout the year. So the market is forward looking, and they're looking into that as well. So it's starting to, react to that. So hopefully it just trickles into Bitcoin, and it just continues to kick up the FOMO so Bitcoin can see these higher prices. Tether dominance, we're still watching this. We did push up to this structure, found a little bit of rejection, but we're still kind of in between, kind of indecisive at the moment. We still have a day left. Hopefully we can close back below the structure at 4.38. That would be nice for Bitcoin. That'd be a nice move to the upside. But we are starting to see a nice structure being formed, higher highs and higher lows. But we're starting to hug this trend line, which could be a good sign, because when you're continuing a trend and you touch it and then you shoot up, touch it and you shoot up, that's showing a continued powerful move. But you can see we shot up very strong, pushed back, shot up pretty strong. Then on this move here, we didn't really touch it. We came close. It was a little bit weaker. We barely made a high, and then we pushed up, came back for this touch, and we kind of just chopped, and we're about to touch it again, which goes to show that we're kind of losing steam. You can see like the moves were pretty steep, and it looks like we're starting to lose steam. So we might end up falling through on tether dominance, which would be bullish for Bitcoin. If we break and close, I expect a close, retest, and a continuation down, just like we always talk about. And that would have some kind of spike on Bitcoin. So maybe that's throughout September. And then as September rolls around, towards the end of it, we start to get a nice fall off, maybe into October, who knows. And we'll see a nice little spike for Bitcoin. Hopefully we can continue on down, break through this structure, and hold and continue on down to the blue line. The blue line has called local tops for Bitcoin. So we're not sure if this was close enough to be that touch, because there was a little bit of a gap from 3.96 to about 382. But we'll see if we end up getting either some kind of double bottom, or we come back to the same region and bounce, and that's it, or if we actually make it all the way down from this point and then we get our bounce and we touch the blue line for our local top. Bitcoin dominance is still looking pretty solid. The trend's still continuing on down. We're still waiting for our large move to the downside, and once we hit this red line around 45%, that should be the top for the cycle, but we need FOMO to kick in, so we'll still keep our eye on that. We're looking for a move like this or a move like this, and it should happen relatively quick. As you can see, it took a couple months, maybe 5 or 6 months. So if we take another 3 to 4 months, that would potentially put us in either November, December, maybe even early January. That's kind of the time frame that I'd be looking for this potential move all the way down for Bitcoin dominance to potentially mark our high for Bitcoin if we catch the FOMO and the aggressive move to the upside that everybody wants to see. That's pretty much all I have for you guys here on MSTR and Bitcoin. Make sure you drop a like and subscribe. Check out the link in the bio, and I'll see you guys in the next one.